An orca in her 100th winter forgets where the last salmon run hides. Her descendants trail behind, ribs stark, eyes desperate. 43% of their newborns are bound to die before a year has passed. But starvation is only the beginning. What really happens in the final, brutal days of these apex predators? And why does this agony matter to the entire ocean? J2, known to researchers as Granny, swam the Pacific for more than a century. Her eyes grew hollow and her skin thinned until the white patches faded into grey. Teeth worn nearly flat from decades of salmon bones left her slower, trailing behind the pod she once led. In her final years, field notes from the Centre for Whale Research describe her at the head of the J-pod, turning sharply at the memory of a hidden inlet, her descendants following close behind. When she vanished in late 2016, the water felt emptier. The pod's movements grew hesitant. Migration routes once travelled with certainty, now fractured into aimless loops. Younger females circled, uncertain, as the group split and rejoined, missing the decisive calls that used to cut through the waves. Orca society is matrilineal. The oldest females hold the memory of every salmon run, every safe passage, every season's subtle shift. They teach the pod when to hunt, where to find the last fish in a lean year, how to navigate the maze of islands and currents. Without their guidance, the fabric of the pod unravels. Foraging attempts falter, calves stray too far or miss their chance at a meal. Photo identification records show that after Granny's disappearance, pod cohesion weakened. The youngest whales, especially males, lost their anchor, mortality rates climbed, and the pod's collective hunger deepened. Menopause in orcas is not an accident of biology. It is a strategy, one that lets grandmothers invest in the survival of their kin long after their own calves are grown. The death of a matriarch is more than a personal loss. It is the fading of memory, the slow erasure of knowledge that once kept hunger at bay. As the pod drifts, the ocean offers no comfort, only the cold certainty that, without the wisdom of elders, the next winter will be harder to survive. Southern resident killer whales are bound to a single lifeline: Chinook salmon. When the salmon vanish, hunger is not a slow ache, but a rapid descent. Within weeks of prey collapse, aerial surveys record the first signs: diminished blubber, a sharp hollow behind the skull, the so-called peanut head. Ribs and vertebrae begin to show through thinning skin. Photogrammetric body scoring from drones reveals a collective decline. The pod's bodies shrink, but the need for energy does not. Every missed meal deepens the deficit. Mothers lose the reserves needed to nurse calves. Up to 1/2 of calves will not survive their first year. The whales move slowly, surfacing more often, their dives cut short by exhaustion. Hunting attempts grow desperate. The ocean offers only echoes and empty silence where salmon once swam. As blubber melts away, the orca's last defense is stripped. The process is relentless. Internal records from the Centre for Whale Research note failed hunts, calves trailing behind, and adults drifting apart. The hunger is not just visible, it is chemical. As the body cannibalizes its own fat, a hidden threat begins to seep into the blood. A surge of toxins stored for years, now unleashed. For these whales, starvation is not simply absence, it is a cascade, each stage more unforgiving than the last. The southern residents, once robust and synchronized, are left gaunt and scattered, caught in an energy debt that no amount of searching can repay. Inside the dying orca, a hidden surge begins. Years of hunting in polluted waters have packed the blubber with chemicals, polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs, flame retardants, heavy metals, drawn in with every salmon. These toxins are stored in fat, locked away as long as the whale is well fed, but starvation tears through those reserves. As the blubber melts, a chemical flood pours into the bloodstream. Immune cells falter, hormones spiral, and the body's last defenses collapse. L95, a young male from the southern residence, was found dead in 2016. Necropsy teams sliced through his blubber and measured PCB concentrations among the highest ever recorded in a wild orca. These levels, far above what scientists call safe, had been accumulating since before the United States banned PCBs in 1979. The chemicals had weakened his immune system, leaving him exposed to a fungal infection that spread unchecked. This is the silent second blow. The whale's own fat becomes poison. The more the body tries to survive, the faster the toxins circulate. For southern residents, the blubber that once kept them warm now carries a legacy of industry and neglect, turning hunger into a lethal chemical storm. Steel hulls and diesel engines carve a constant path through the Salish Sea. Their wake a low-frequency thrum that never stops. Hydrophone recordings capture the surge, container ships raising underwater noise by 20 decibels as they pass, their engines drowning out the frequencies orcas need to hear. The southern residents' calls, usually audible for 5 miles, are now cut short, masked by the mechanical roar. For a whale hunting salmon by sound, the ocean becomes a maze of static. Every lost tone means another missed meal. While the whales struggle to find food, human decisions close off what little remains. Dams choke the rivers where Chinook once spawned by the millions. Commercial nets and trawlers haul away what slips through, leaving salmon returns at historic lows. Each policy debate is measured in years, not days. Proposals for quiet shipping corridors stall in committee rooms as port authorities and industry lobbyists argue over lost profits. Meanwhile, the whale's world shrinks. Every delay, every unheeded warning adds another body to the tally. The ocean's silence is not natural. It is manufactured, and it is lethal. A stranded orca draws a crowd to the tide line. The animal's black and white skin blisters under the sun, each breath a laboured gasp. Salt water pools around its eye, unblinking, as flies trace the edges of wounds opened by rocks and its own desperate thrashing. The stench of decay mixes with the sharp tang of seaweed and diesel from responder boats anchored just offshore. Volunteers kneel in the sand, hands steady but faces drawn. They check for shallow breathing, measure heart rate, and whisper updates to a veterinarian on the radio. Every movement is deliberate, every second measured against a protocol that leaves little room for error. Each decision is governed by clinical protocol. Assess the animal's alertness, its ability to support its own weight, the depth of internal injuries. If the prognosis is grave, the team prepares for euthanasia, a measured dose of barbiturate, a moment of stillness, then a final exhale. Sometimes the call is made to wait, to let the tide reclaim what it can. The crowd is kept at a distance, their silence broken only by the calls of gulls and the low hum of engines. In these moments, the boundary between rescue and mercy is razor thin. Every responder carries the weight of that decision long after the body is gone. Beneath the surface, the body drifts. When an orca dies at sea, gravity claims it, drawing it down through miles of blue until it settles on the sea floor. There, the silence is absolute. Within hours, the first arrivals, hagfish, sleeper sharks, deep-sea crabs, tear at the soft tissue, stripping muscle and fat in a slow, methodical feast. Each scavenger follows a rhythm set by millions of years. Flesh gives way to bone, and the ocean's hunger is patient. But this banquet carries a hidden cost. Orca blubber, rich from a lifetime of salmon, is laced with chemicals, PCBs, and flame retardants stored in every cell. As scavengers gorge, these poisons pass into their bodies. ROV footage from deep whale falls shows a parade of life, clouds of amphipods, mats of white bacteria blooming across exposed ribs. The feast lasts months. Microbes digest what the sharks leave behind, breaking down fat and bone, releasing nutrients that ripple through the food web. Yet every mouthful carries a trace of the surface world's legacy, industrial toxins now woven into the deep. No ceremony marks the end. The skeleton dissolves into silt. The ocean recycles everything, indifferent to suffering or memory. Death feeds life, but the cost is carried forward, molecule by molecule, into every creature that comes to feed. There is no consoling witness, only the vast, indifferent sea. In that indifference, mortality is catalogued and carried on as the ocean keeps going. Even now, every southern resident orca carries toxins that will outlast their bones. As human pressure deepens, the ocean remains indifferent, absorbing both life and loss. Mortality is inevitable, extinction is not. What we choose next shapes whether these voices echo or fade forever beneath the waves.